try and do it at the same time.
All right.
Ready? Oh, shit. Didn't work.
Well, I did mine, but then it's gonna be you saying "oh shit" over the top of it, which kind of ruined my sound.
Sorry.
I have to get another one. Clink.
Yeah. So, in case you can't tell, this is a special episode. It's strange doing this in person because we've got so used to doing the podcast over Zoom that it feels strange to be talking in this way when we're actually next to each other.
Yeah.
I feel like you like switch into like a slightly different mode from just like normal talking mode.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. This is our second episode that we've done in person, and it's also our 55th episode overall. So this is a year. It's been a year since we started. It happened to be a coincidence that we're doing this in person, and it's also our 55th episode.
There are 52 weeks in a year though, so it's a little bit over. But yeah.
You know what? Like, I've just totally been riding with the fact that, like...
Yeah, because you said it. You were like, oh, this is our, like, year anniversary as well. And I was like, oh, cool. And I was like, wait a second. That doesn't quite work. Doesn't quite make sense.
So we just skipped over the year.
Yeah.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
We missed it. It was a few episodes ago.
Jesus.
I hope you enjoyed it.
You know, like, my girlfriend's going to absolutely rip me to shreds for that. Like, just take the piss out of me so much.
What, for not knowing the amount of days in a year?
Weeks in a year. Yeah, that's just such the kind of thing that I'd get wrong.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
50. I feel like 54 sounds like a good amount of weeks, but...
54?
Yeah.
Well, this is 55 though.
Yeah. It's neither of those though. Because when you said it, I was second guessing myself. I googled it because I was like, "There's definitely not like, it's 52, isn't it?" And I googled it, and yeah, it's 52.
All right. Well, we had a very like ordinary episode for our year anniversary. But I'll tell you what. Even though this isn't technically, it's not technically been a year. Like, we started this podcast around now because it was like we started it. It was very close to the new year. We actually released our first episodes to the public in January, didn't we? Like early January.
On the 1st of January.
Was it?
Yeah, we released like 4 episodes at once.
Yeah. So, you know, if you want to be all technical about it, then like we can just forget that and just say it's basically been a year. Yeah. And we're in person, so yeah. Right, well, that's kind of scarfed my
your enthusiasm
a little bit. That's put a damper on things.
Well, you know,
I feel this alcohol-free beer is kind of unjustified now, really. Like, what have we got to celebrate? It's not even 55 weeks in a year. Oh, for God's sake. This is our year review anyway. Yeah. Just to kind of, well, I suppose like it's just a nice thing to put a marker in and just reflect on how it's been and what's been cool about it, and just like, I mean, a lot of things have changed in the last year. When we started recording, we were in lockdown, and I was thinking like, why did we start on Zoom when we were both in Brighton at the same time? And I was like, oh yeah, it's because it was super COVID time, lockdown. Yeah. And when we first thought of this idea to do a podcast, then we had an initial meeting, which was in, my mum's got like a separate room in our house because she's a therapist, and it's her therapy room, which is like quite separate from the house. And we had like an illegal COVID meetup. Yeah. But it was kind of distanced and in a separate part of the house, so we were being cautious about it. Yeah, and then we started it on Zoom, and you know, and last winter was quite a dark winter. Most of the people that I have spoken to about last winter say that they had a pretty shit time of it. So it felt very different in kind of energy. I mean, at that time I was working full-time on basically exclusively online on Zoom, and I was kind of almost stuck in Brighton because I came down to visit my parents, and then all these crazy lockdowns kind of came in really quickly, and then I sort of ended up just being stuck in Brighton. And for me, it was definitely like quite difficult, as the Christmas period and around then, and that kind of winter was quite difficult. But then we were going on like really nice long walks together and chatting about stuff, and then we started this podcast, and that was such a positive creative aspect of that time. I felt
Yeah, no, it's been a really nice thing to have. Like just having a creative project like this with kind of shared has been great because you know it can be tricky when you're kind of just doing stuff completely on your own, which I've done quite a bit. So it's really nice to have a shared thing, and like because of like just how we are, when normally like when you're in Manchester, we were basically just, I don't know, like every like 6 months maybe just texted like, what's up bro, you're right, and you'd just be like, yeah, I'm good man, like whatever, just like a few like very basic texts was pretty much it. And then, you know, like if you came down, if we were in person, we'd just fucking chat for hours and hours and like have a great time together, but we wouldn't really keep that up when we were in different cities. So that's been really good to have like a regular way that we can just hang out and have good conversations, which we normally would, like, you know, think how many fewer conversations, how much less we would be kind of involved in each other's lives. Like it's really nice to have like each week we kind of just have a little chat about how things are going in our lives. And you know, it's good to have someone who, like, you know, I've known for a long time and like I respect your opinion on things, so it's like nice to share different things that I'm doing and like see what you think about them, or like just see what you're up to, and kind of like if I can give any input on your projects or help with anything, or just to be curious of like what you're working on and stuff. So that's been super valuable.
No, I was thinking about that. Like it was, because I can remember at one point when I was still doing my degree in Manchester, like it was like, oh, we, you know, me and George have really good chats and it would be really nice to have something a bit more regular, and then trying to do sort of Zoom / like phone call things, but then it's not as nice as just meeting up in person and just hanging out and going for a beer, and there wasn't really a direction to our conversation. It would just be, we might end up landing on something interesting, but we don't really have a purpose other than like essentially trying to attempt to get what we get from the podcast, but just from a general chat. And as soon as we've had this shared project, it's sort of in a way that the podcast is almost an excuse just to hang out, and I think, but that's really helpful to have that framework. So the format often for when we record is we will get on Zoom and generally we quite quickly start recording the episode, and then afterwards, then most of the time, then we'll just catch up for like half an hour and just chat about projects, just chat about how things are going, catching up. And that's every week. You know, we record every Tuesday at 7 p.m. and it's like, that's just like that Tuesday slot is so like embedded into you know, my routine now. That's just like that, you know, and my girlfriend and me like knows like, oh, that's the night for the podcast, you know, and that's, it's just so built in, and that's really nice to have that because even obviously the episodes themselves have a, well, slightly weird words to use, I guess, but like a confessional, like therapeutic aspect, you know, where it's like if there's stories or things that are coming up currently week to week, then that gets brought into whatever the quote is that week. So then that's really nice to be able to have that. But then after we've done the recording, then that sort of just carries on and we're just able to chat a little bit more. And that's great. You know, I think like one of the things that I've reflected on when just thinking about this 55 weeks in review is I was listening back to our first pilot episode, and this was about 3 episodes before we had even put, like, we have I think 3 in the bank that never got released from us just practicing. And I was listening to the first today, and it's amazing how our kind of energy has actually changed with that. Since we weren't intending to release it, and I think that had an impact because we were just generally talking about,
we were literally just chatting how we'd normally chat.
But one of the things that you said in that was that what's really nice about this project is it just has intrinsic worth in and of itself. You know, it's not actually, there could be no listenership and it would still be worthwhile. It'd still be something, you know, that has a lot of benefit. And that's definitely ran throughout the recording, because I remember a few months ago kind of sending you voice notes when I was a little bit drunk and just being like, it's so good that we have, you know, like 7 months of weekly conversations from us being this age, and stuff that we can, you know, in years to come, like listen back to and be like, oh, what was going on then? You know, like it's just like so amazing to actually have that. It has so much worth. Yeah. And then it's also like amazing to hear from, you know, listeners and stuff as well on top of that. So anything else is kind of a bonus. Which is really nice.
Yeah. No, I remember that being like a big thing starting, just realizing that it's all bonus, it's all upside. Like if you can, you know, it's tricky, like it's hard to find things like this. I think we're really lucky that we have, and we've, you know, put work into it, but also things have just kind of come together really nicely. It's been like a lot of things have just kind of worked and fitted together for this kind of thing to emerge. And yeah, it's so great when you've got something where you're like, okay, cool, it's already good as it is, and then everything else is just upside. It's like if you've got like a hobby that you really enjoy doing that you could potentially make money from, but if you really accept that you're completely happy to just do the hobby, like you don't need it, you don't need to make money from this. Now it's like a very kind of privileged position, like it's very, very cool if you can be in a position like that. A lot of people can't. Like it's tricky. It's not like I have loads of other things in my life that are like this as well. But yeah, it's cool. I mean, if you can find it, and I think it really helps to re-emphasize that just within yourself, because you could start to be focusing with the podcast on like the numbers, or like, or you know what I mean, all these like extra external things, you know, that could be better, could be reaching more people or whatever, could be like making us loads of money and then we don't need to do anything else, you know what I mean? Like you could just focus on all these other things. But it's really good to remind myself, like even just you saying it there, just reminding myself like, wow, it is such an awesome thing regardless that we're doing, and like we're just enjoying the process of it. And everything on top of that is just bonus, you know.
Confetti. And it's
I've not got your bloody notes in front of you like on Zoom.
I know, that is one thing about doing it in person, is just
God, spit it off the dome.
You look a bit unprofessional if you're like looking at your phone during recording. I was listening back to this pilot episode today, and the key thing that I noticed was our energy levels was completely different. So I remember when we were recording that, I was quite nervous prior to doing it, you know, like we were really taking a step here. This is making something felt a bit more permanent, a bit more real. It was like actually manifesting as something. You know, I was nervous about that we might run out of things to say. But I think the primary thing was just that it felt, definitely me, I felt very subdued. It was just like quite quiet, serious. We didn't really joke very much. I listened to about a third of it and I was like, I can't listen to any more of this, basically. And then I listened to, I think, our third released episode. And even then we had just made so much improvement. And in that episode, I believe, is the story of you being stalked. And that was so cool to listen back to, actually. I was still on the edge of my seat, like listening to it, even though I know.
Man, it's quite crazy. It's one of my craziest stories.
So it was just really nice to kind of, just to listen back and just to get a sense of what we were like, you know. And those earlier episodes were over an hour long. Sometimes now we're much more on kind of half an hour. And I was curious about how your editing has changed, because George does all the editing for the podcast. So how you've noticed, or if there are things that you've noticed, or the ways that you edit have changed.
Well, I'd say like alongside the editing has also been how we are kind of coming into the episode. With the very start, before we kind of had a format, was, you know, the unreleased ones especially were like completely freeform, zero planning, nothing. And then we had some phase where we were over planning, and it felt like we would give like a TED talk. Do you know what I mean? Like we would like have all of our stuff, and then, you know, the other person be like, yeah, that's interesting, and then go off on something completely different that they prepared. So it really didn't flow as much. It wasn't like our ideas kind of combining. It was like we'd had like a set of of talking points, and we went through them, and then went to the other person, they went through theirs, and then it ended.
Yep.
And then it's, you know, got much more organic, so we kind of do research for it, but then we've had these things recently where it's just, we have these really nice moments where like our ideas come together and we like come to new realizations, which is really cool. But yeah, basically with the editing, there's been phases similar to that as well. Some where it was at the start with very little editing, where it was just, you know, us talking, and it found there, especially as we were not as good at talking, there was so many pauses and ums and ahs, and it was just not as engaging. It just ended up, you know, really just going on a lot, you know. Yeah. And then I went to like super over editing, where I was like cutting out every little gap and like every little every single thing, and it felt like really sped up the episode. Like there was one in particular that I edited like that and like really cleaned it up so much. It took ages to do, but it didn't feel as much like a real conversation. And I think that's one thing that I like about the podcast, is it really feels just like two people kind of chatting and exploring the ideas. It's not like a super prepared, super quick thing. It's just really having some space in between it, and that's where it is now. That's kind of how I've been editing it for the last 6 months, maybe a bit less, probably about 6 months that I've been on that sort of style. And yeah, I think that's the way to go. But yeah, I've got so much quicker with it.
It's a really nice point with the editing now. I think it just, I don't, you know, and I suppose this is the aim of editing, is like you just don't even notice. It's just a seamless thing, just kind of runs through, and you're like, this sounds like I'm in the room. Natural. But yeah, you don't realize that me and Oscar are not quite as eloquent as we might seem. There's just more, there's a significant amount of just pauses and, you know, ums and and saying like all the time. And, you know, a few little bits that I cut out. But now I don't really cut out whole sections. There was a point where I would like cut out whole sections of the episode, which I didn't feel fit or didn't quite work. Whereas now I don't really cut out any sections. It's just tidying up a few little bits and gaps and stuff. And one thing that we kind of stumbled across or decided fairly early, I think, was about just leaving ourselves time to think about what we're saying, giving ourselves permission to do that. Because sometimes when you're in a conversation, you know, normally you would feel the need, if you're talking, you've still got things that you want to say, then you'd need to keep talking to keep people engaged. It's like it's just a habit really to just keep on going before you've actually got to the point, or you haven't really worked out what it is you're trying to say, but you just want to keep going. So we said, if that's the case, just pause. Is much easier if you just pause and have a think. And, you know, sometimes where we'll pause for like 15-20 seconds and like really think about like the direction we're going, which obviously in a normal conversation would just be weird, and you don't want to listen to that when you'd be like, think the podcast has finished or whatever. But that's actually been really helpful, rather than just rambling for ages. And it's definitely become a natural thing as well. Like the thing that I've noticed in the last 6 months is just that it doesn't feel like a strain to record. It doesn't feel, I don't feel nervous about it. It doesn't feel clunky or unnatural, or like I'm kind of, there's no tightness to it. It's just it is just a conversation. But part of that conversation, what's become very natural as well, I think, is just saying, I might start a point and then be like, no, that's not going anywhere, or that doesn't make any sense. You can just cut that bit out or whatever, and that will just be a natural thing to just be like, oh no, that. Whereas before, I think there was a desire, I guess, like a lot of quite unconscious things coming in. Are expectations of other like what are other podcasts doing? How do other people sound? How do we want to sound within this? And it would mean that there would be a lot more straining, and I think I was trying to complete ideas even when they weren't very good or not particularly well formed, just because I just felt the need to do that. Whereas now it's like, if I can feel that something's trailing off or it's not really working, then it's literally just like, oh, this isn't working actually. Don't worry about that. And but that's not like, there's no thought. That's just like, I'm aware that we're recording, and it's an editing process that just takes place within recording, which is really nice, because it feels like now it's easy, just flows.
Yeah. No, that's cool. I was thinking actually the format that we've landed on, I'm super happy with, and it feels almost, it was your idea. It just seemed like, I was going to say, it just seemed like it just came magically out of nowhere, but it was like just your really good idea. Like it just works so nicely as a format. Like if it had just been us talking each week, it wouldn't have really have given us a lot to, well, we would have talked about stuff, but there wouldn't have been anything behind it in the same way. I found it really interesting to have this focus on a particular quote, because it means that the conversation we have on the podcast, it's not actually just the sort of conversation we'd have outside of the podcast. It's not like work, but it's more like a discipline almost. It's like us really perfecting a skill, or like, you know, doing something like playing a game or something that you're getting better at. You know, you're really thinking about this quote and really trying to articulate it clearly. And I've definitely got much better at articulating my ideas, because, you know, I'm someone who, I think a lot, and I've got like things that I feel I understand in my brain, but when I try and communicate them to people, sometimes that can be quite tricky and frustrating as well. And I think I've mentioned this, I think, a few times on the podcast, but like with me and you, how we used to talk, like often we would just be like, oh yeah, it's like that with this sort of thing, or like this is like what we were talking about last week, and we would say all these like self-referential things, all these things that just were kind of like little bookmarks or little pointers to other things that we'd said. It sounds weird, but we've built up like you do this with everyone really, but we'd built up like a very intricate shared psyche.
It's shorthand.
Like this weird connection of our ideas, where we could kind of talk about things in a certain way with each other, because we've been exploring the same sort of ideas for a long time, of like self-development and spirituality and all those sorts of things. And because we've kind of been on that path, you know, on somewhat parallel paths, it just means that we would talk in these ways that would just sound like complete nonsense to other people. So it's been good to learn how to articulate those sorts of things more clearly.
And I noticed that in listening to older episodes, was that the tangents that don't link very strongly, there was a lot more of them basically before. It seemed like, I think out of a desire of wanting to get enough content for the quote, and it's just a lack of confidence. You can't. It's just like, well, this is something, so I will just say it. You know, it's like how when people feel, you know, socially anxious, then they start just speaking to fill the space, and the stuff isn't interesting or relevant. It's just like you're just putting it out. And I think listening to older episodes, you can definitely hear that there's a lot more tangents that you're like, oh, I can maybe just about link how this works in now, but like there wasn't any need for that, you know. And now it feels actually that's much less common when we record now. It feels that it's just generally more coherent, generally more linked together, which I just think is about confidence really, and just doing it enough times to be like, this will work, you know. Obviously we come to the end of episodes, and you'll hear in the intro recordings that we do, so each episode starts with an intro. That intro is recorded, we record that at the end of the episode, so we've recorded the whole episode, and then we do the intro, and that's a way of just sharing how we feel and kind of building up the episode before you listen to it. They tend to be sincere, so you'll hear in some episodes, you'll hear like a particular enthusiasm, and like, this was really good, you know, this was like really, really nice. I think that was just a cool point to like point out how that works, but I can't remember how I was going to link that into what I was just saying, talking about tangents.
You just went on one.
But like, you know, it's kind of not like, I know that some people listening have been listening for quite a long time now, and yeah, I just really hope like hearing a little bit more about how this is structured and kind of picking apart our process and why we've done certain things is interesting. I don't know, like it's obviously really nice to reflect on it now and sort of wrap up this year, but like in a way this episode is just talking about the past year and also like, you know, how things work within how we're recording.
I think, well, I guess with the intros, like it definitely does show like the energy that we've kind of cultivated, which I think is quite nice, and now we do them completely off the fly, like as soon as we finish the episode we basically just be like, right, you ready to do the intro? Yep. And then we start. That's it. And that means that we can really carry over the energy of like where we got to in the episode, and I think that's a really nice way to do it, because before what we used to do is we'd end the episode and then we'd be like, right, let's think of like some bullet points of what we covered, and we were trying to come up with like some more kind of catchy things of like, you know, in this episode we discovered this, or I can't remember. They were like, we were trying to come up with these little,
and they'll be like
bullet
a
points.
Bit quirky sometimes. And George's secret fear.
Yeah.
But the thing is, we're not actors. You know, and we're not like radio presenters either. So like we might be able to get good at that by this point, but when we were doing it, it just sounded so clunky. And at the end of every episode, we'd be like,
we've got to do the 3 point,
and then it would be like, we do.
It started off with 5 bullet points, and it was like, we got to do like, we did like less bullet points.
We'd alternate like as well, so it's just like, no, it's your turn for bullet points now. You're like, for fuck's sake. And they would, they weren't. Like, I mean, I have to do that. So the thing that I do, which is, George definitely puts in more hours with the editing, but at the end of when the Zoom gets turned off, then I'll go and write the episode description, do the little Instagram post, get that ready, and so I do end up having to kind of do the bullet points on the episode description at the end. So that can be a bit like, particularly if we've had like a longer session after recording of just like catching up, and then it's like, you know, 8:45, I'm like, okay, no, let's get inspired, because I have to do it then. I really have to just strike while the iron's hot, because like it is like, it's just I have left it to, you know, another day, and it's just like, it just ends up being Friday when we're supposed to be uploading, and you know, and I haven't done it, and I have to so it's better to just do it straight after the episode.
And otherwise you'd have to re-listen to the episode to remind yourself of the things that are in it, and no, it's just the best way to go with that.
So my copywriting skills has somewhat improved, but I don't kind of pride myself on that. I mean, they're fine.
No, you do good little intros.
Thank you.
Often I'll be like, nice. That sounds good when you put it like that.
Sweet. Okay, I'm glad.
No.
In a way, they're like weird. It's weird things, like, you obviously, if you subscribe to the show on Spotify or whatever, then you're not going to be reading those.
Yeah, I don't normally
It's just like, there's a new episode, I'll just listen to whatever that is. Yeah. So in a way, it's more, I suppose we're getting to this point. We've got 55 episodes, and we've got another year to come, and then, you know, we've got a good collection of episodes now. And I suppose it's people who are brand new to the podcast, and they're looking through, and they're like, what am I interested in here? Mm-hmm. And then they can just see a little description of what we're actually talking about in that episode. And fun fact, but podcast said at some point, so I have no references for this, apologies for that, but on average podcasts end after 7 episodes. Like, people do 7 episodes and then give up. That's like the average length that people do. So to get to over a year, then that's like, you know, we've done really well to do that, actually. Like, considering our listenership is small as well, it's like, as we said, it's really just a passion project and something we enjoy doing. And obviously the feedback is lovely when we get it, because we do get feedback, and since we are just sharing a lot of ourselves in recording, I suppose it's like being complimented for really what you're about, you know, when you meet someone, or you're in a situation with someone, and someone just like has this really kind of precise compliment about you and what you're about, not like some kind of cool thing you've done or whatever, like in the past, or what,
like a cool item of clothing or something that's not really about you, you know?
Or my good looks, but like it's much more like a compliment of something a lot deeper. like every time someone
yeah.
compliments the podcast, it does feel like that. It's like it's such a special thing.
I feel I hadn't thought of it like that, but you're right.
Because it's an intimate thing. Like we're often sharing personal stories about what's going on, and so it's really nice.
Yeah. I have as a little tangent, like I have a thing like if someone compliments me for something that I'm not proud of, or like I don't think I've done very well, or whatever it is, I really hate it.
You know what? I was just listening to the episode where you were talking.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It was literally
like for some, it's one of the things that like really annoys me.
Grinds my gears.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm back there again. It's hard getting all these compliments. Yeah. So don't compliment the episode where George looked like the badly edited. Yeah.
Episodes. George really won't like that. Don't say like, oh, my favourite episode was that one where you clipped all the sentences really short and it sounded like really fast. They're like, he won't like that.
Yeah.
I should find out which one that is, just to like channel people to compliment you on that one.
Yeah, man, I think I'm pretty happy with this. It's been like a really nice little wrap up. Are there any other little bits that you wanted to mention?
No, I'm just looking forward to a new year, and we will reveal plans for what we're going to be doing in 2022. But some changes are coming. And I think I'm excited to kind of take it to another level in a way. You know, we've really got, I feel, very comfortable with the way that we've been doing it, and we've become very at ease with recording, and you know, learned a lot of new skills, and now it's time to kind of like step into a new kind of territory,
while still keeping the essence of it.
You know, we're going to be keeping the quote format, like it's all going to be there. It's just, I feel like, ready to you know, like see, all right, how can we like challenge ourselves to like bring this to like a new thing. So,
and I was just thinking that actually, like with you saying with the, you know, the average being like 7 episodes and how we've done a year, but it still does. There's been points where we've both been feeling more enthusiastic about the podcast or less enthusiastic about it, but there's not been any points where I've been like, we should just stop doing this. Like now after a year, I just feel just as confident that we can do it for another year. Like there's no feeling of like, oh, I just gotta keep grinding it out. Like it's not how I feel about it at all. So that's just a nice place to be with it. You got a quote for next week?
I do.
Sweet, let's hear it.
I'm really excited about this one. You can't peek. Couldn't do that on Zoom. All right, this is a quote by 𝗚𝗲cie𝗿𝗲𝗏. Dedicate your life to the twin and warring gods of precision and wild abandon.
Nice.
It's quite a powerful one, I think.
Awesome. Thanks for listening. For this episode and any other ones that you've listened to as well. We really appreciate you having you on this journey. Like we said, it's something that we're just enjoying doing anyway, and the fact that, you know, there's people who are listening to this right now and who've enjoyed the episodes is just really cool. There's like really cool moments of just like, oh wow, there's people who are actually listening to this and like enjoying it, and it's having like an influence on their lives in some way. And that's just like a really nice thing to know.
So thank you. Thank you very much, and we will see you in 2022.
Yes.
All right.
Thanks a lot.
Have a good week
and a good year. Peace.